Tyler, welcome back to Sports Business Secrets. One of the infamous double sessions here, which is pretty crazy. I think it's what 4 or 4.5 years later. So we have a lot to catch up on here.
Yeah, we do, man. Hey, I still remember it well. Came at you from Jeonju, Korea at that time when I was just getting my feet under me, with a new team, new league, new experience, and a lot happened between then and now. But we're still plugging away, and it's been really cool that we've been able to share each other's journeys along that way, meet all over the world many different times. So yeah, really fortunate and blessed to have a buddy like you and look forward to talking more here tonight and the morning for you.
I love it. I love it. So for those who don't know Tyler, I won't do like a super lengthy intro. You can phase back to episode I think it was 21 or 23 to listen to that. But he's obviously in South Korea here. He's gearing up for a new season in a new role in the KBL, which he'll talk about. But as mentioned in the last podcast, he's got an extensive resume from all the way from a GM of an ABA team to assistant and operations role in the G League to a stint as a head coach for a G League team, player development role, WNBA team, assistant for another team in the KBL, head coach of a B3 team in Japan, assistant coach for a B.League team in Japan. So it goes on and on and on, and we'll try and touch on a little bit of each of those in this episode. Without further ado, let's just jump in. So, all right, first things first, you are currently in South Korea, correct? So where in the world are you?
Yep,
And then just yeah, I guess we can really dive into I guess the starting point of assistant for Kyoto.
sure. Yeah, man. No, I'm in Seoul. Moved back here from Japan maybe getting on 8 months or so ago. The last time obviously that we had an interview, I was just starting in the KBL with the team called KCC Aegis, and really a fun ride there. We had a lot of success, especially the first season, winning the regular season championship, making a run all the way to the finals, and getting beat by a Jared Sullinger led uh, KGC, Korean Ginseng Company team. So tough way to go out, but it was a really great season. And that rolled over to year two, where again we had a lot of success on and off the court. Um, in those off seasons, the Korean teams, they obviously they like to scout events in the US. So I think we had directly left from Korea to go to the PIT and caught a couple G League games. And that all rolled into close to like Easter weekend or something like that. And so then I was back home with the family, and really out of the blue get a phone call from Roy Rana, who I spent time with in Sacramento, and he was just real forward about it and said, "Hey, I'm getting this job in Japan. I haven't been over there. I plenty of overseas experience from the head coach of Egypt's national team, assistant with Germany's national team. He went to the Olympics in Japan, and through all of that, he had got scouted to really help a team climb into the B.League and into what's gonna be the B Premier, which you've talked a lot about. Um, so it was kind of decision time. A big thing kind of came right in front of me, and it was a process. Obviously, I still was doing a formal interview for the job. He was checking all doing all his due diligence, and but we came to it like, hey, this is a good match, and shoot, let's go for it. So yeah, kind of packed up and moved from Korea to Japan, and started there with the Kyoto Hannaryz. Um, and really, Roy gave me a huge opportunity because he was still coaching the Egypt national team. So he had some obligations, really, especially at the preseason time. So there was about a 6 week stretch where I was really running the show, with player development workouts, with coordinating team practices, getting things going, getting our preseason games under us, and move into the season, strong on the right foot, and we really hit the ground running there, worked well. Roy had also built a great staff around him. So a lot of awesome resources there in Kyoto. Uh, and through all of that, he had said from day one that his goal for every staff member is to see everyone grow to be head coaches, whether that be in Japan or elsewhere. That was his goal and his vision. Um, and it's starting to happen. The very next year, I had an opportunity to be a head coach. Um, Another one of our assistant coaches is currently a head coach in Japan. The other members of the staff are really fast tracked to rise the ranks as well. So yeah, that was year one in Japan. You really get to see that basketball has taken off, and it's yeah, I mean, again, you've talked extensively about it, but it's hard to really visualize unless you're there. Full arenas, fans going crazy, uh, really, really a tremendous amount of respect that's goes into that culture, and um, you feel very welcomed to be a part of it. Foreign coaches, foreign players. The thing that really amazes me is how diverse that league is, from the coaches that are from Australia, from the US, from New Zealand, from Europe, from other parts of Asia, and the players, from all over the world. It's not just American imports, it's guys from Africa, guys from Europe. Um, Philippines obviously has established themselves as great players that can fit that style of play. So you do have a very diverse league with a lot of different team identities. You don't see copy cutter systems across the board. Everyone's pretty unique and runs their show how their head coach and GM envision it to be run, and you learn a lot. You learn a lot. You learn a lot about life. You learn a lot about basketball. You make some great friends and great connections. And that was just amazing to see, well, across the board, every team in the league is very professionally run and very high quality level of both domestic and import players. So that was great eye-opening experience about Japanese basketball. They were in the middle of and still are having a lot of success on the national team level, and that's only ignite that fire even more. So, fans really appreciate the game and enjoy the game and cheer for the players, uh, not just at the B1 level. So after a season there, again, I got an opportunity to be a head coach in Japan, which was tremendous, especially at that time in my career. I was really um, looking forward to that opportunity, and so moved from Kyoto to Hachioji, the Hachioji Bee Trains, which is a B3 team that has had different levels of success. At one point, it was a B2 team, kind of toggled back and forth, and uh, was looking to make a statement and bring in an American coach. Last year was one of two American coaches in the B.League, B3. And was able to kind of, build a team. Like a lot of the players from the previous season returned, but in terms of looking for imports, working with the GM directly to kind of manage our budget and go for some players that we're looking for, and uh, yeah, I think gave tremendous opportunities to some guys, and in particular Terrence Sullivan. He came over after playing in the G League, kind of bouncing around Europe, not having the best experiences, and came to Japan and just really took to it like a fish in water. He adopted things culturally. He was so happy to be there. He really left a mark in the community. Unfortunately, he got injured about halfway through the season, but he was such a tremendous person and player that the team was, willing to bring him back for the year two just based off of, a short sample size of what he could do on the court, but more importantly, like what kind of guy he was, what kind of person um, they want to have associated with the Hachioji organization. So seeing him this year, even though I wasn't there, continue to have success was just awesome.
That's great, man. Yeah, I mean, that was a masterclass in itself. Those couple minutes there, but a couple of comments slash questions after that for the Japan market. So you touched on just a minute ago, as the head coach, you were working with the GM and the front office to really identify and bring in the types of players you needed for the budget, right? And so maybe talk about for a minute like that role and those decision making responsibilities don't always fall on the coaches. Like every country and every market is different. Sometimes it's the head coach, sometimes the assistants are responsible for identifying players. So, how different was that to, for example, when you were at in Kyoto? Like, how much did coach rely on you to bring some names to the table or relationships versus like everything's on your shoulders when you're at the B3 level leading the team?
Yeah, I think Roy again he set a good example for that because he approached it like you know uh he wanted to build a team and he wanted to find the right guys and he wanted everyone to be involved. So it was very transparent what we were doing, who we were looking at, guys bringing names to the table, uh calling agents, talking to players, having Zoom calls with everyone that we were interested in, and really kind of gave a nice uh directory of how to do it, and how to recruit. Essentially that's what we were doing, recruiting players. And now the budget is extremely different from the B1 to the B3. But kind of that roadmap of how to do it was there. And for me, uh, I was not sitting in the office there in Hachioji. I was all over the world. I mean, quick side note, like I had just gotten married and we had our honeymoon in Africa. So I was in Tanzania, talking to the Hachioji front office, texting player, trying to coordinate a lot of these things. Um, and mind you, we 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 speak the same language of basketball, but we don't speak the same language in our daily life. So we were also working directly with our team translator to make sure these conversations were efficient. And then, like I said, we had Zoom meetings with players, with Taryn too. We talked to him for an hour. Um, and they had questions prepared. The GM, the assistant GM, certainly, even though I know Taryn, coached him in the G League, also had questions for him, ready to go. And uh, I think we talked to 6 or 7 players, and two of them that we signed, and one import. Again, they allowed me to talk to. Uh, and introduce myself as he was coming back from the previous staff, the previous team. So, felt like we had to find 2 guys that fit also with him. So, yeah, a collective effort, and very happy with how it played out. And you heard from all of that, even going from Korea to Africa to the US, doing our team introduction, on a big Zoom call. All of it was very unique and very fun, and a cool way to introduce myself to the group, but uh, nothing replaces it when you touch down on the ground, when you get into the gym for the first time and you start high-fiving the guys and you start working with them, and that was maybe August and the season's still, coming along end of September, early October. So we still had a solid 2 months to get to know everybody and see how we can work together.
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that the comment about like the Zoom calls. I mean, for those players listening or really anybody, you know, it's I think oftentimes, especially in the summer when, players are waiting for jobs, it's like it can seem transactional, but there's so much that goes into it. Like you even mentioned like the Zoom calls. It's like first of all, you gotta sort through the language barrier. You have to have the Zoom calls, you have to have, proper due diligence. And so um, it it takes time. And so like it's not just like a hey, oh, this guy has cool stats, let's go sign him. It's all right, well, who did he play with? Who's the representation? Is there somebody on the team now that could be a good match or a bad match for this player? And do they mesh together? And there's so many details for every single decision. So it is time consuming. But I love that obviously Roy was able to set that example for you, and and
Hmm.
and that's just something that as on the agent side that is always important is like it can be exciting for a player to hear, oh, this team's interested, but it's not going to be, all right, cool, here's the budget, here's the salary, sign. It's like, no, 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 let's take this one step at a time, get to understand who's going to be coaching you, where you're playing, and all those details.
Sure. And every call, the agent is also right there, next to the player on those calls. So, it's very transparent what goes on. And the Japanese teams, they're very diligent and they're very particular to make sure that they ask certain questions, just so it's on record, just so it's being answered and being addressed.
For sure. And then the last note here, and I'm sure this will be a good transition eventually as we start to talk about the basketball in Korea. But you mentioned the Terran situation, and a lot of teams will bring players back because of obviously they're good basketball players, but the familiarity and how they interact with the community, and because that is a huge weighted factor, a very heavily weighted factor in signing a player in the Asian countries in general, but obviously in Japan, like we're talking about, you have to be outgoing. You have to show love to the community. You got to stand up in front of the entire arena after every single game, and and bow and show your thanks, and it's a big piece of it, and not everybody can do that. And so, is that something? I guess just talk about that for a minute, but something that reflects on the Asian culture of like really ingraining yourself in the community and showing, having that type of respect at, off the court. It's not just go get buckets and win games. That's obviously the goal, but,
Mm. Right.
more so than other markets abroad, that's important.
Yeah, I mean, win or lose, doesn't matter if you got beat by 20, you lost at the buzzer, you won a blowout, you won on a heroic shot, you played 5 minutes, you played 40 minutes. Doesn't matter. What's important is that you acknowledge the fans for coming. So everybody's gonna line up at half court, they're gonna bow, they're gonna greet the fans, both teams, they're gonna also show respect for their opponent, and then the home team's gonna do, that ceremony. So head coach say some words, MVP say some words, and then you greet the fans. You take a lap around the arena. You high five everybody that puts their hand out. Um, so many nice gifts that you get. People will share a lot. They'll give you candy or they'll give you um, cheer things that they made, some team flair, or Hachioji had an artist, so he was drawing like cartoon caricatures of all the players and the coaches, and you really see some people that are just so appreciative that they're able to spend that time, to have fun, to bring their family, to root on their favorite player. And it B1, B2, B3, that community, they just love their team. So, even if you're a B3, Hachioji is a suburb of Tokyo, there's, I mean, you know better, but there's 6 or 8 or 10 teams within this, 20, 30 mile radius. And some of them are the top teams in the B.League, but they were Hachioji fans, you know, 3,000, 4,000 coming every weekend to fill this place and to cheer. Um, so you do have a tremendous amount of pride, and Kyoto did an amazing job because when we first got there, it it had a kind of, dipped a little bit. It's a very historic city, um, very cultural city, very international city, and for whatever reasons, the basketball team wasn't so popular. Um, but we came in with energy and with enthusiasm, and we put a product on the floor that hustled and that showed respect, and we saw a huge change from the first 5 home games being, seeing a lot of empty seats to the last 5 where you can't get in the gym, it's all sold out. And they had continued that run for the last 2 years. Since I left, every single game sold out and the stadium rocking. So you if you do it the right way, you really are going to be supported, and you just want to set a good example, and you want to try your hardest every time you're out there.
Yeah, that's great. That's great, man. So, all right, unless you had anything else to touch on for Japan, I'm glad we kind of went through that, that next step in your career. But obviously excited to get to South Korea and where you are now, and dive
Sure.
into, this next chapter. So, um, obviously, so this is your well, I was going to say second home because obviously you're from the States, but really your first home now. Now that
Yeah.
obviously, your wife Ami is from South Korea, and can you first, before we get into basketball stuff, can you talk a little bit about like the just the country, the culture? I got the VIP tour when I was out there a few weeks ago. I got to experience the food, had a nice yoga session at Ami's own yoga and Pilates. It was amazing. But just for the listeners who might not have been there or understand as much about the culture, I think there's obvious similarities in many of the Asian countries, but there's also many differences.
Yeah, I mean, obviously basketball is what brought me here, but it's not what kept me here, you know. Just fell in love with a person first and foremost, but the country too, you know. You have a beautiful country, really fun, really high energy. There's always a buzz in the city, and at the same time it has another side of peace and serenity and just beautiful landscape and scenery and a slow pace of life. So you really feel, anyway, I feel a sense of pride to be here and to be able to call it home. Um, Seoul it's a super dynamic, super complex, um, really cool vibe, fast-paced city. There's a little bit of everything, from food to culture to sightseeing to, um, just the Korean wave that's kind of taken over a lot of cultural components of entertainment, especially, but the K-pop, the um, Korean food, the Korean beauty, all of that stuff has kind of become mainstream. But when you see here, what you really notice is that people are genuine, people work very hard. It's very competitive culture, but yeah, people, just as Japan, respect is probably at the top of the list of, what you need to show to be here, and then also what you're going to receive while you're here. But yeah, you really at first glance you see a lot of similarities, but as you kind of navigate your way through life, you see a lot of differences too. And you enjoy like seeing the differences and being able to understand, okay, it's done this way here, but it's done that way there. And um, I think people also appreciate when you kind of know the culture of both, and you don't just lump it all together as one big part of the world. It's very much two unique countries, two beautiful countries, and yeah, I'm yeah, I couldn't be happier to call it my home.
Yeah, that's awesome. Not to mention it has, let's say, because I know we're both big coffee guys, but let's say no questions, top three iced coffees in the world.
Sure, sure. It's a staple. I mean, people really say, it's the lifeblood, here, like coffee, it's a coffee culture from when you get up to when you eat, after your meal to walking down the street, it's very competitive. Just as any industry is, coffee is at the top of that list because there's five or six coffee shops on every square block, So, yeah, I love that about Korea.
All right, so now that we know a little bit more about the culture and the country, let's jump into basketball. So the KBL, um, can you just start with maybe just a little overview about the league, number of teams, just kind of like the format. Obviously, you know, there's many differences in the format and the structure to, what we talked about previously in Japan. So yeah, if you can give a little just brief overview of the league, and then we can dive in from there.
Yeah, sure. And you can talk an hour on the
Of
differences between
course.
Korean basketball and Japan basketball, but the thing that really stands out is the KBL is 10 teams. There's over 50 professional teams in Japan, as you've broken down many times. There's 10 here, and each team is owned and operated by a major company. So, the Samsungs of the world, the Hyundai, LG, these big companies are operating these teams, these sports franchises. Many of them also have a basketball team, maybe a volleyball team. Um, Sono, the team that I've joined, they used to have a hockey team, in Korea. But there's a company structure. to the team, how it's run. Uh, the office and the basketball, they're kind of, they're all under the same company. So there's rules. Every team is going to operate differently within that chain of command, but you're representing more than just some guy that's owning the team. Japan runs with the sponsorship, structure. So one team, uh, a title sponsor, and below that, hundreds of small businesses that want to sponsor the team and want to have a piece of that franchise and pay to have their company recognized, whether that's in the arena or that's on the jersey or that's on the website in many different forms. Here, you got one main sponsor, your company, and that's who you work for. And so it's a 10-team league, so it's again very competitive. It never, uh, really just is too much distance in the standings. A team may have a bad season one year, and then the next year they're at the top. So you got to be ready every season. It's not so much about long-term building. It's about, hey, let's every year let's do our best. Let's grab the import players that can help us win. Let's you know develop our local players as much as possible. Also, there's the Asia quota rule, so Asia import rule. So there's a lot of teams have a Filipino player mixing in, but more of the gameplay. So two imports can play in Japan, plus Asia import. Here is only one. So one guy on the court. Makes a big difference to the style of play. It's going to be very more team-oriented basketball here, very much motion based systems. You see a lot of movement, you see a lot of cutting, you see a lot of team defensive schemes that I'd never seen before. How they kind of play the game is unique to the Korean brand and Korean style. We went to a playoff game, you and I, and you again, you see a lot of similarities from the style of Japan basketball with Korean basketball, but a lot of differences too. Just in the game presentation, uh, style of play. Um, all of that, and it it's at the end of the day, it's a very fun league, it's very competitive, and it has room to grow in terms of I would say just the quality of basketball can continue to develop and be good, but not so much in terms of like the league size, right? It's pretty much set here. We've had these 10-team league for pretty much as long as it's been operating, and that's the model. So among that very small basketball community, you got to fight, you got to work hard to uh, build your team and to put a product again that's respectable, that the fans will buy into, that they'll come and support. And same idea. You want to do it for the fans. You want to build uh, a club that people can be proud of and that people can support. But as far as travel, everybody's pretty much centrally located. Within Seoul, of course, and a few other cities throughout Korea. So travel is by bus. Um, the way that the teams provide and treat and take care of everybody, of course that includes your import players and uh, coaches, but it's just 5-star treatment. The way that you're fed, the way that you're taken care of. If you need something and you ask for it in a proper way and in a polite way, usually it's there, within a very short amount of time. So it's demanding physically, mentally. It's a very demanding league because, again, we go back to the culture. It's a competitive culture. You're expected to work, and in this corporate model, you're coming in as like you're working for a company. So you're going to be there early. You're going to stay there till the boss leaves. You're going to do overtime. You're going to have team dinners. You're going to have a lot of time invested and sacrificed just to work. So players too, they got to be prepared to practice early, take a short break, have a very tough practice in the afternoon. And, oftentimes, especially this time of the year, you're going to come back again at night and do a little bit more, so we're on the court 3 times a day, coming up here. And, right now, when the season ends, you get about 60-day window for the players to do what they want, to decompress, to go see a personal trainer, to travel outside of Korea, to do anything they want. But after those 60 days are up and you report back to the team, it's go time. So, you hit the ground running, and mini training camp at your facility. You go to an outside facility and have another training camp. Uh, then the coaches and scouts and whatnot usually go to Vegas for the summer league for a little bit. Then you come back and you start playing scrimmage games, really gearing up for the season to tip off, which this coming year is going to be October 3rd. But between now and then, countless hours are going to be spent in the office, on the court, in the weight room, and you really spend a lot of time with your team. So if a player is comfortable, if they love basketball, if they're not afraid to work hard, and then again, you can really integrate into the culture and to the lifestyle here, it's a great life.
That was an awesome breakdown. Real quick, one just kind of recap. So, and you talked about the roster a little bit, but just for some of the listeners who might not have picked up, I talk about the construction a lot. So you mentioned that huge difference between Japan and Korea, where in both situations you can have two imports on the roster plus the
Mm.
Asian quota player. In Japan, you can also have that naturalized player, but the big difference is in Korea. In the KBL, only one of those imports can be on the floor at once, right? And so that's a huge difference basketball wise. So I guess can you talk about um, why that matters and who you bring on to the team? Like obviously, generally speaking, if you're in the basketball world, well, hey, if you're a big man, like you're in demand in Asia, just because like you know American players or outside players happen to be bigger than some of the local players, so you're valuable. Okay, like we get that, but you know. What's the strategy behind selecting those two imports? And is there a certain type of player that seems to succeed more than others in terms of size, experience, age, and then just take it from there.
Yeah, so there's a lot there. So I'll try to keep it pretty concise and just go through some bullet points, right? So first, of course, you're expected to score and rebound and hustle and do all those things, but more than anything, you got to integrate with the other players on the court. That's really, really a priority when trying to find these guys, because that's the type of basketball that they want to play, and that's the type of basketball that the fans expect. It's not a one-man show. It can't be, and if you try to do that, the defenses, they will stop you and they'll foul you so much and the referees won't call it, and you're just going to be digging yourself in a deeper hole if you're coming out here and just trying to go rogue. So you've got to fit in with your teammates and you got to fit into the system. That's very important. Two, you got two guys that are coming in hungry, and it's not always just this guy get 20 minutes, this guy get 20 minutes. Your team's going to think a lot about it, whether you want an option one and an option two, or you want like a 1.5 type, like if you want a little bit of a hybrid, two different styles, whatever you want to do to bring in your two guys, they got to have an understanding that it's not always going to be fair and balanced. It's going to be long times, long stretches of one guy playing 32, 34 minutes and one guy playing 8 or 6. So you got to be prepared for that. You got to be comfortable with that, because regardless, you're going to be getting paid pretty well, and you're going to have an expectation that you're fully committed to the team, that you practice your butt off every single time you're there, and that you're not whining and complaining about minutes, because it's also a 54 game season and there's a lot of wear and tear. So your moment's going to come, it's going to be there, and you got to rise to it. I've seen the situations where the guy has just dominated the whole season, and for whatever reason, his luck ran out, or he got into it with the coach, or it just, the magic just faded, and the playoffs roll around and it totally flipped roles, you know. Then the second guy was the guy getting it done and getting all of the minutes and getting the glory. Um, and then how are you going to react if that happens to you, right? Are you still going to continue to support your team and the guy who was behind you that's now ahead of you? So it's a really important dynamic, you know, that you do have two guys that can support each other and do it together because that just for the chemistry is extremely important, you know. And three, you just it's it's very results driven league. You know, during the COVID time, it was a lot more difficult to switch out players because you had to come in and do a long quarantine. You know, getting visas were much more difficult, and so pretty much you got your two guys and you rode them through the season unless someone happened to get injured. But now it's pretty much results driven, and if you're not getting it done or you have a bad week or your attitude wasn't good at the wrong moment, you're out, you're gone, you know, and somebody else is going to come in and fill that role. So, um, yeah, you got to come in with that right mindset to work and let the results happen, let it take care of itself. But come in and work hard and do your job that you've been selected to do and that you're being compensated for nicely. And again, I go back to, you know, if you need something, ask for it and it's going to come, you know, outside of just demanding playing time, pretty much going to get what you ask for and what you need to have a good life here. And yeah, you know, that's three off the top of my head, but it's also a very tedious process to select two guys that can come in and join your team.
That's really good. I mean, that's such a great piece of advice. All three of those bullet points, but I will double down on one of them and just give Donovan a quick shout out because one of
Yeah.
my guys, Donovan Smith, obviously kind of went through that, and like so for all players listening, he let's say dominated in the PBA, and the style's a little different to where he had 35 40 point games whether he was in China NBL or PBA. When he went to Korea, obviously it was like kind of a fill for the last couple of months, which he knew going in. But yeah, he knew that hey, he might be playing 8 minutes a game, and it was frustrating. It would be frustrating for anybody because you want to impact the team, but there's only one guy that can be on the court, and
Hmm.
you are still expected to bust your ass just as much as if you're the starting import,
Yeah.
right? And your time will come, and if you, as long as you do that in most situations, it'll work out. And then obviously, eventually, he kind of gained some more minutes, and then proved, then he got 18 minutes and got a quick double double, and like it will come. But it's just such a good point, both from an agent or a coach or an outside or a player's perspective going in there. Like you have to know that, if you go with the wrong expectations, you're going to be disappointed. And so, needed to give my guy Donovan a quick shout there.
Yeah, I mean, he did great, by the way, Kev. Like I was very proud of you. When you were telling me about this guy, Donovan Smith, and this and that, and for a long time, you know, and hey, good luck to you, dude. He looks awesome. You know, he looks great. What about B3? You know, he's gonna go. You know, he's gonna go to the KBL. He's gonna go to B1. Man, he did, you know, and he fit in great, you know. He was a hooper. He can shoot threes, he can put it on the deck, he can post guys up. He's the body type that does well out here. And I was very proud you know, to see Donovan. And that was my old team that he joined. So internally also heard a lot of complimentary words and praise about, you know, just what kind of guy he was and how he came into a tough situation at the time and he just put in the work and I think he loved Korea just from what I could see.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. He did. He's the type of guy that the easy check boxes are the community, the smiling, the love from fans. So no, I appreciate that. I know he'll appreciate those words as well. Um, So let's see. I want to talk a little bit about like the local, like the youth prospects and the local players. Like the player pipelines, because obviously it's always been like an international thing, but even more so now with the connection of the updated NIL and college basketball. coaches are acting like front offices and teams are, which they should and they need to. And now it's not just, hey, let's get a couple players from Europe on the roster or some international players. It's, hey, where in the world are the best basketball
Mm.
players that we can bring to the States? But also on this topic, just talking about some of the youth prospects there and where they go and how they develop. So I know it's kind of a loaded question, and maybe you can just kind of give an overview on maybe the development of the youth prospects, and then we can dive in from there.
Sure. Right now, I mean, the buzz name, Xavier Lee, he just transferred to Florida. He's got a Korean background, although he did not grow up in Korea, just tremendous player, tremendous athlete. Um, a player, Yo Jun Sok, who was in Gonzaga University, just transferred to Seattle, where he's going to get some playing time, and he's a great prospect, NBA prospect, 6'8", wing that can catch alley-oop dunks and hit pull-up threes in transition and block shots. Um, really, really big time athlete and player. Uh, Hyunjin Lee, who played at Davidson, right? He's got off to a tremendous start of his career. Played in the G League, played in Australia, won the championship with the Illawarra Hawks this past season. Um, he's here now, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to work him out on a daily basis and just, really dynamic talent, can shoot the ball, has great size, works his butt off. And, he got the opportunity, as did Jun Sok, through the NBA Academy. They both had spent time in Australia at the NBA Academy. I think that's a great pipeline for kids in Asia. Japan's building one. They've Australia's certainly done a good job. Korea's had a pretty good relationship with the NBA through the years. When you are kind of developing some talent, there's been players that go to IMG Academy, and you get mixed reviews at a big type of academy like that, but they challenge themselves to go over there and to play in tournaments, play in um, that type of environment that's competitive and that uh, exposes them to basketball that they're not able to see in Korea. The grassroots programs here, they're it's getting basketball is getting popular. It's getting more kids are moving from soccer or from baseball and getting onto the basketball court. Certainly the quality of athlete is great. Really, really tough kids that have good size, that are coordinated, that can move, that love to play, that love sports, which obviously is a great sign for the future. And there's just a big opportunity here to continue to grow because there's so many international schools in Seoul. So the International School League, produces some good players, some guys that have gone to the U.S. and played in lower division, D2 or D3. The local Korean high schools are very competitive. It's a great league. And then the colleges, I've had a chance to work with two different universities here, um, taking them abroad, in a tournament in Hong Kong, and then on a 3-week training camp in Spain. So you see that level, at the college level, and then hey, they can get after it, right? Just the speed, the intensity at which they work, and how hard they play, combined with great shooting, very diligent workers. So they're going to consistently improve their ball handling, their ability to finish, some of that creativity that they may not be exposed to as they're kind of growing up. Anytime you have a chance to open those doors, they just soak it up like a sponge, and it's cool to see.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so Um, do you see, like, as we look forward into, like, where the youth prospects develop? I think we've seen this trend with, obviously, I mentioned Europe, and now a lot of players wanting to go to the States. But in Korea, there's a draft, right? So the KBL has a draft, and so how does that affect maybe some of the youth prospects and maybe whether they get drafted or not, or they want to try and take their talents to the States to get some NIL money and develop in college, or whether they try to go as another Asian import in another Asian league? Like what is like the trajectory for some good talent there? And then I guess, for our American coaches listening, where should they be paying attention to, trying to get in and identifying these prospects young?
Sure. Every team has a basketball club, every KBL team. So their youth club, really cast a wide net, and the kids that are members of their youth club, they actually have those player rights if they were ever to go pro. So if you're part of a team's youth program, I guess similar to Europe, but a little bit different. But if you're part of their youth program, then once you're become professional, you're already designated to that team. You forego the draft. Uh, the powerhouse high schools, pretty much work hand in hand with the powerhouse colleges. So, um, you've got two or three universities out of, you know, 20 plus that play in the college league that are pretty dominant. And then, 80 to 90% of the draft, which is 3 rounds, 10 teams, so just 30 players are going to come from those schools. Um, there's also a supplemental draft that goes on for kids maybe that are Korean, but grew up in the States, for example. So, Korea, you have to serve in the military that's part of your requirement. And if you have a Korean passport, you have to spend 20 months doing military service sometime between the age of, 20 and 27. And so that's obviously a huge commitment. But if you have a American passport, but a Korean background, you can change that out. You can change that passport, with the understanding that you're going to serve in the military if you're a male, obviously. But so they do have that supplemental draft for people in that category. Maybe some years there's zero, some years there's four, and then teams are not drafting, they're bidding on those within their salary cap. So you can sign those kind of on a bid auction type of draft. Uh, for people who are scouting Korean basketball, the best way I think to get a feel of the cream of the crop is the uh, national teams. The U17 um, always puts a good product on the floor. They're playing in the Asia games. They're going to play in bigger events. The team was in Jordan in this past fall. Singapore 3x3 events. These type of things where the guys are going outside of Korea. That's where hopefully people can take notice, because here locally it's tough. Unless you want to come to Korea and spend some time here, going to the games. The school calendar is uh, different from the U.S. So in the summer, school's still going on. There's a break at the end of November until February. That's kind of when school is not in session. The rest of the year, give or take a few weeks off here or there, it's school time, and season time. So the college season's spread out over 9 months. You may play just one game in one month and four games in another month. So it's tough to really pinpoint, um, like when and where to come here to watch. But I think FIBA is the platform for the guys. And if you're wearing that national team flag, you're going to play your heart out and you're going to play with pride. And again, they're putting pretty good talent on the floor. They're competitive with, obviously Japan is great. Um, Australia and New Zealand are included in a lot of the Asia games. Um, but then you play a lot of Middle East teams as well, Iran, Jordan, countries like that, India as well. So they're able to play competitive games against countries on this side of the world that you never know who's watching, right? You can watch all of those games from your computer, whether you're a college scout, NBA executive, a basketball fan in general. But I think that's, in the long run, that's where the Korean talent really has a chance to shine.
Yeah, and you made a comment about just the events abroad, and even three x three events like in Singapore. It's like that I mentioned this in one of my episodes the other day for American coaches, where the future is look like if you want to scout somewhere, you have to have more staff. Like you have to operate like an NBA team or a professional team does, and say, well, why don't you have boots on the ground in Asia for having someone to go to these events and to the FIBA events? And obviously that comes with more budget and other variables. But the point is, like all those events you just mentioned, like there's just no way you're following all of those with with the staffs you have on top of all the high school and current college prospects that you have to watch anyways. But that was a master class in where to find the upcoming Korean talents for sure. Man, I know we've been jumping around here a lot. It's been a master class. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about before we start to wrap up. I know kind of along your coaching, let's call it a break from the uh, B3 Hachioji's head coach up until now in your new gig. You've been able
Mhm.
to work with EPIK Sports and do a bunch of different trips and coaching and consulting and really just operate into this international space of basketball. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that and the work you've done with that and how that's kind of helped you in the coaching sphere.
Yeah, I mean, just I really got a tremendous opportunity at the right time when I shortly after I returned to Korea. There was that urge to coach, that itch was there, and there was things popping up here and there, and talking to a lot of people, and really had a tough time just to say, okay, let's focus on where I want to go, how can I change the game? And I kept coming back to this is the place, Korea is the market. It's this is where basketball can grow. And I think I can, uh, help, in a small way, a big way. I just want to get started on that. And met a really, really tremendous guy with NBA experience, working in the league office for over 15 years, and got to meet in the gym one day when we were watching a KBL scrimmage game, in late July, and just got to talking, and really our minds were aligned in so many different areas. Um, and introduced this company. Okay, hey, basically I'm Dennis Kim, and I have this background. I'm glad we got to meet. This is my vision, and we were just talking for 2 hours about where this thing can go, and they're really fortunate to have the opportunity to work there for EPIK Sports. We hit the ground running, from day one with managing projects, getting on the court, doing player development, partnering with a local training lab, training company. So working with players of all skill level, from just very beginners to the elite prospects in Korea, to adult classes, for guys that just want to learn how to play, girls that just want to learn how to play the game and exercise and have fun. So could see, oh, we're making an impact. And then big picture, this is a big time company with, really, really ambitious goals and dreams to really change the landscape of basketball in Asia. So, start to see, okay, now we got some really big projects. We're in big time meetings with executives. We're talking with the NBA. We're taking trips abroad. We're hosting, you know, the Korean referees to hosting them in New York at the NBA headquarters, giving them, a 2 day seminar on reffing, and through Dennis's connections and global network, and through my ability to get on the court and to work with players of all levels, and do it with a positive attitude, we were able to make a lot of progress in a short amount of time. And of course, that that coaching itch is always going to be there, but there was like three or four coaching opportunities that just said no, was not interested. Um, all the way until recently, and you kind of get to that point where this is an offer I can't really turn down. It's a great situation. It's here in Korea. It it really, kind of was all coming together because of the work that I was able to do with EPIK Sports, because of the um, name that we were starting to build in Korea, and so there was some buzz around it. And thankfully, Epic's going to fully support this journey, and they're going to continue to shine and continue to grow with upcoming projects and things of that nature. And yeah, I'm going to be back in the KBL, so uh, we're still in the same neighborhood. We're still going to see each other all the time and cheer for each other. But yeah, I mean, for all the listeners, I think Epic Sports is a company to watch. It's really going to change the game of basketball here, with from player management to skill training to international tours to all facets of the game from grassroots to pro. It's going to make a big name in the basketball market, not only Korea but throughout Greater Asia and across the waters into Europe and in the United States as well.
That's great. Yeah, I know there's some exciting projects coming up this summer and this year, so I'm looking forward to seeing those come to fruition here. So, man, as we wrap up here, one question I think I can't remember. I asked you a lot of questions last time. I can't remember if I asked a specific one, but coaches that want to get into international, like the international scene, do you have a piece of advice for them?
Yeah, you got to be in the gym, you got to go to the events that international teams are going to come to, especially if you're in the US, that's getting on a plane or hopping in your car and driving to Portsmouth, Virginia for the PIT. That's you know, just approaching people, introducing yourself, helping in any way that you can, if that's giving scouting notes, if that's being willing to come to travel abroad to do a short camp or to find ways to make connections that open these type of doors, because it is a relatively still small basketball world, but there's a lot of opportunity. And if you can't do it alone, you got to find someone or people that can help you, and you got to help them too. So having an agent is going to be absolutely critical, especially now for coaches that want to get into the door. If you can't crack it on your own, I say, like, go to Virginia like it's easy. It's not always easy just to travel and go somewhere for 4 days and stand out front of the door and hand out business cards. You have to have people that are in your corner, and agents, just as they're important for players, they're extremely important for coaches that want to get their foot in the door in different markets.
Yeah. Yeah, great advice. Great advice. All right, man. Well, the official last thing I have for you that again, I can't really remember. I don't think it was an official lightning round last time, but I got a sports business lightning round. I got to ask you these questions,
Yeah.
so you got to hit me the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
Yeah, we did it for sure. Let's
I
go.
think I think we did it, but maybe the questions are a little different. So, here we
Yeah,
go.
good.
What's your favorite color?
Oh man, it's blue.
Do you prefer coffee or tea? I think I know the answer to this.
Coffee.
Do you prefer pizza or pasta?
Pizza.
Would you rather be able to speak to all animals or speak four languages fluently, which I know you've got a couple?
Four languages, no doubt.
What is one of your favorite countries outside? Let's see, I usually say outside the States, but outside the one you're in now.
Well, Japan's the easy answer, but if I say Japan just to buy a little bit of time, I will have to say Tanzania.
Mm, nice. What is one of your biggest strengths?
I just relentless positivity.
Who is one of the first people to really believe in you?
My dad.
What is one of your biggest fears?
Oh man. Uh, just not living up to expectations that are, that I have for myself, but also I think when people count on me, I really want to do a good job.
If you could have dinner and drinks with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who's one of the first people that comes to mind?
Man, I don't know. Donald Trump was the first one that came to mind, but I don't know if that's going to be the best. But why not,
That would be an entertaining one, that's for sure. If you could turn back time and talk to 18-year-old Tyler, what would you tell him?
Uh, I mean, be yourself. I think this answer is going to be the same as the last episode, right? Be yourself, stay in the gym, have confidence in what you're doing, pursue your goals and live your dream, and I think I think about that question a lot because you asked me it last time, and that's what I would do, and I hope, that's what I am currently doing.
That's awesome. Yeah, you definitely are. You're living your dream, and it's been fun to be along for the adventure. So, man, I appreciate you coming on. I'm excited for coaches and agents and parents and players and whoever to listen to this episode. I know they're going to learn a ton, and I know we brainstormed a lot of different ideas for panels and events and organizations and courses. So we'll have to keep the audience posted
Yeah.
on that stuff. But man, it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate you coming on.
Man, I can't wait for round three, man.
Let's go. Let's go. Maybe we'll have to do it a little bit less than the same break that we did last time. So maybe
Yeah,
next year we'll do
yeah,
another
we got
one.
to do it within 4.5 years. So I think it's possible.
God willing, man. All right, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kevin.